Okay, so for the next demonstration, we're going to use a different color powder. So in this case, we're going to use white granular powder with a fiberglass filament brush. And to demonstrate the contrast, we're going to do it on a Perrier bottle that's darker green in color. The purpose for this is just to review how we lifted the prints last week, but also to incorporate the vertical orientation of the print. Now, when I say vertical orientation, from the lectures and from common knowledge, we know that the anatomical orientation of the finger, where you've got the rounded or crest area on the top of the finger and the flexion crease. If you've got multiple digits, it's very easy to assist in the orientation of the print. Sometimes if you have a fragmented fingerprint, determining the orientation is a little bit more difficult. But what we're interested in when we talk about the orientation on a vertical surface is this. If you are handling a bottle and drinking from it, that would be kind of the normal grip that you would hold onto the bottle. It's important, once those fingerprints are lifted off of that surface, so if you can visualize with me the grip, and then we put those onto a backing card. Depending on which directionality you're holding the backing card, you may not be able to determine how those prints were located on the surface. So it's kind of important on a vertical plane to be able to tell whether the prints were put, say, on a window such as this or this way. And again, I reference back to the lecture when we talk about digit determination and the orientation of the fingers. So again, to review what we discussed briefly in class, is that when you have a drinking container, this is the normal orientation to drink it. If the orientation of the prints is like this, that's not a normal way to drink. And this is more of an indicator that this is now being used as a weapon as opposed to a drinking vessel. So, and again, further to that orientation, I default back to the lecture. So I'm going to put a couple of fingerprints down on the surface here. So I'll just put them there, and I'm just going to dust those prints up with the white granular powder. Now, just to assist with this, when you're either dusting or photographing or lifting the prints, either using plasticine, or in our case, we've got a couple of balls of Play-Doh here, just to kind of anchor the bottle to kind of keep it stabilized so it's not going to roll around, especially if it's a cylindrical shape. Doesn't want to stick very well to the craft paper, but there we go. I've dusted the prints up. Set that aside momentarily. Now, our scales, I'm going to put the information on the scale. And as I said in the previous video, is that write the information down on the scale first before you put it on the surface to kind of minimize the chance of disruption or contaminating or degrading the impression. So this is the third impression, so I'm going to make it R3. So R3, 2493, WK, 1 Any Street, and today's date. Now, referencing back to photography, the fingerprints need to be on the same plane as, or the scale needs to be on the same plane as where the fingerprints are. So when you look at the orientation of the prints and the cylindrical shape of the bottle, when we look at what is considered to be an acceptable focus, if you are having a shallow depth of field where the focus is primarily on those fingerprints, anything on the area that's falling off away from that plane there is now going to be out of focus. So putting the scale over here would be of little value, because if you focus on the scale, the fingerprints are going to be out of focus. And vice versa, if you focus on the fingerprints, the scale will be out of focus. So not only for focusing to be able to read both or to see both, but also for the purposes of perspective, for blowing these images up to one for photographic purposes. It can't be done if it's not on the same plane. So in our case here, I'm going to put it on the same plane as where the fingerprints are. So you can see the prints are on this plane here, and the scale is on that same plane as well. Go back to our makeshift stabilizer here. Now, when it comes to the China marker, I'm going to, in this case, I will use the black one here just for demonstrative purposes. You could use the white and just enhance it, but I want to make it more visible for you to see. So in order to do this, and referencing back to the orientation, a bottle has an orientation being, this is the neck of the bottle, the mouth of the bottle. This is the normal orientation upright. And I know I'm giving Agatha a problem here when it comes to trying to keep up to me, because I keep switching back and forth. But because this is the normal orientation of the bottle, regardless of how it's found, if it's on its side or on its end or whatever, this is the normal orientation. So the incorporating an arrow to indicate which directionality is the normal orientation of that item, I'm going to put the scale, or I'm going to put an arrow, and you can see the arrow there. It's not pointing towards the tip of the finger, although it could if the fingerprints were this way. It's pointing towards the top of the bottle, or the normal orientation of how that is held. So if the bottle is located down by the investigator on a plane like this, the orientation is not up like this as it's laying on its side. It's still the normal orientation of how it's held in the upright position, regardless of the way the fingerprints are laid on the surface. Likewise, if you had fingerprints that were on a window, for instance, the arrow does not point in the directionality of the tip of the finger. It's pointing upwards, that this is the normal orientation of up on that window surface. So I've stabilized the prints. Now I'm just going to circle those. And again, because that arrow is referencing these prints and the scale, I'm going to incorporate the upright orientation arrow within the scale, within the encircled area there with the China marker. And now I'm just going to dust it up a little bit here. You can see that the scale now, or sorry, the China marker now changes color to more of a gray color with the white powder that's on there. Now lifting the prints, you want to follow the contour of the bottle. Now this bottle kind of has an orientation that it's curved in two different directions. So trying to keep the scale, the tape without getting creases is virtually impossible on a surface like this, because it's not simply just the curvature of the bottle that you have to worry about going one directionality, but also the tapering effect of the bottle, because it's not only curved this way, it's curved this way as well. So just try to do the best you can, iron out any bubbles. Can't get my fingernail on there, so I'll just leave it for now. We'll probably trim that with a pair of scissors. Again, so you can see the bottle here. You can see you can see the fingerprints here. You can see the directionality arrow is pointing up this direction here. So it wouldn't matter on a horizontal plane. You can always tell which way those prints were located on the surface by that directionality arrow. You do not need that if the fingerprints are found on a surface that is on a vertical plane. Sorry, you need it if it's on a vertical plane, or the artifact that they're found on has a normal orientation of a vertical plane. If it's found on a floor or a counter surface or a tile or something like that, there is no vertical aspect to it, so there's no necessity to have it.